The military training ground was alive with the sharp clang of boots against dirt and the low murmur of voices laced with anticipation. Early morning mist clung stubbornly to the uneven terrain, the sun just beginning its slow ascent past the distant tree line. Soldiers gathered in clusters, their faces a mixture of determination and competitive fire, the air thick with unspoken challenges. Today was no ordinary day, it was the day of the grueling obstacle course competition, an annual test of endurance, skill, and nerve that separated the strong from the strong-willed. Among the crowd, the unspoken hierarchy hung as palpably as the morning chill. Veterans with hardened eyes exchanged quiet nods, subtly marking their place in the pecking order. Younger recruits shifted nervously, some eager to prove themselves, others resigned to the rigors ahead. The atmosphere buzzed with competitive energy, each man and woman sizing up their rivals and allies alike. Whispers of past winners and record breakers drifted in the air, fueling a quiet tension as the sergeant paced near the starting line. He was a man whose presence commanded attention, not through volume alone but through the weight his words carried. His uniform was impeccable, medals gleaming faintly in the early light. A veteran of countless campaigns, he had little patience for weakness or hesitation. His eyes scanned the assembled soldiers, landing on a new figure who stood apart with an almost imperceptible grace. She was a new recruit, fresh to the ranks and untested in the crucible of this competition. Her uniform was crisp, her posture steady, but what caught the sergeant's sharp eye was the rank patch stitched neatly on her sleeve, a low rank, a newcomer's badge that spoke more of potential than proven skill. A dismissive chuckle escaped his lips, low and sharp, cutting through the murmur like a blade. The sergeant's laughter rippled through the group, drawing curious glances. "Look at this," he said aloud, voice dripping with scorn. "A fresh recruit thinks she can run with the big dogs. Let me tell you something, rank means something here. You don't just walk onto this course and expect to win with that patch on your arm." His gaze bore down on her, his tone mocking as he gestured broadly to the worn course ahead, a gauntlet of mud, ropes, and steel beams that had broken more than a few wills over the years. The recruit did not raise her voice in defense, nor did she flinch under the weight of the sergeant's scorn. Instead, she remained quiet, her expression unreadable. Her dark eyes held a calm that contrasted sharply with the sergeant's brash demeanor. She stood with her arms folded, absorbing his words without a flicker of doubt or anger. The tension between them was palpable, a silent battle of wills that unsettled the others watching. Around them, the other soldiers exchanged uneasy looks. Some chuckled nervously, caught between loyalty to their seasoned sergeant and the undeniable presence of the newcomer. The sergeant's mocking words had sown a seed of doubt not only in the recruit's abilities but also in the minds of those who had yet to see what she was capable of. The unspoken message was clear: this was a man who believed rank defined worth, who saw newcomers as obstacles rather than comrades. The sergeant's voice rose again, louder this time, his tone sharp with certainty. "You're going to slow us down. The course isn't forgiving, and neither am I." His words echoed off the surrounding trees, an open challenge that seemed meant to provoke. His laughter, harsh and unyielding, rang through the air as others began to settle into their starting positions. Despite the sergeant's dismissive attitude, she made no move to defend herself. Instead, the recruit's gaze swept over the course, measuring every obstacle with a quiet intensity. Her lips pressed into a thin line, betraying no emotion, but inside, a storm of determination brewed. The sergeant's scorn was a gauntlet thrown, and beneath her calm exterior, she welcomed the challenge. The soldiers around her began their warm-ups, muscles flexing and stretching, voices rising in calls and taunts. The sergeant barked orders, his presence a looming force that set the tone for the competition. Yet, the recruit remained slightly apart, methodical in her preparations, her movements precise and deliberate. The quietness of her focus drew subtle glances from those nearby, a contrast to the boisterous confidence of the veterans. As the minutes ticked down to the start, the sergeant's laughter had faded into a sharp, watchful silence. His eyes lingered on the recruit, as though waiting for any sign of weakness or hesitation. But there was none. Instead, she stood poised, a figure of quiet strength amid the clamor. The tension in the air thickened, an electric charge of anticipation and doubt. The sergeant, confident in his assumptions, had underestimated the power of silent resolve. The recruit's calm was not ignorance, it was a shield forged from unseen hours of training and an iron will to prove her worth. The final moments before the whistle were a swirl of nervous energy. Soldiers exchanged last-minute wagers and predictions, the sergeant's dismissive smirks lingering in the minds of many. Yet, beneath the surface, a subtle shift had begun. The recruit's silent defiance planted a seed of curiosity, a quiet question hanging in the heavy morning air: could she rise above the rank that defined her? As the sergeant barked the command to line up, the recruit moved with quiet confidence to her place at the starting line. The other soldiers eyed her with a mixture of skepticism and intrigue. The hierarchy that had seemed so rigid now felt brittle, vulnerable to challenge. The sergeant's loud skepticism echoed in the stillness around her, but it no longer defined her. The whistle blew, sharp and clear, slicing through the morning calm. The soldiers surged forward, a wave of motion and grit. The recruit's steady pace cut through the noise, a quiet force moving with purpose. The sergeant's laughter had faded, replaced by the silence of watching eyes and the unspoken question that hung heavy in the air: would the recruit prove him wrong? But the answer was still ahead, hidden in the course and in the moments yet to come. For now, the training ground held its breath, caught between doubt and the promise of something unexpected. The competition had begun, and with it, the first crack in the armor of old assumptions. The recruit's footsteps fell with a steady rhythm against the uneven dirt, each step measured yet purposeful as she plunged into the obstacle course. Around her, the others surged forward with bursts of raw energy, some reckless, others calculated, but her movement was different, calm, precise, as if she carried a quiet certainty that transcended the chaos of competition. The sergeant's earlier scorn lingered like a shadow at the edges of her mind, but it was a shadow she refused to let cloud her focus. Her breath was controlled, even as the course demanded strength and endurance. The mud-caked beams and tangled ropes loomed ahead like silent sentinels, threatening to halt the progress of those who faltered. But she met each challenge with methodical determination, her hands gripping ropes with practiced ease, her legs finding footing where others stumbled. Every obstacle was a test, not just of physical prowess but of mental steel, and she navigated them with a quiet confidence that unsettled the spectators. The sergeant, stationed near the midpoint of the course, had shifted from mocking laughter to a wary silence. His eyes, sharp and unblinking, tracked her progress with growing intensity. The recruit's calm composure was beginning to dismantle the assumptions he had made in the early moments of the day. He watched as she moved through the hanging rings with fluid grace, swinging and landing with an ease that belied her rank and experience. Around them, the other soldiers began to notice the change in air. Whispers rippled through the crowd, soft murmurs of surprise and disbelief. The recruit's quiet determination was drawing reluctant attention, a silent challenge to the hierarchy that had seemed so unassailable only moments before. Some exchanged glances, their competitive fires flickering uncertainly in the face of her steady pace. On the ground, the sergeant's jaw tightened. He had underestimated her, that much was clear. But arrogance had no place here, and he was a man who respected results, even when they came from unexpected sources. His eyes narrowed, watching as she approached the wall climb, the most daunting obstacle yet. She paused for only a heartbeat, calculating her grip, then launched herself upward with a controlled power that seemed almost effortless. She reached the summit and vaulted over, landing lightly on the other side. The crowds hushed or grew, but she didn't spare a glance. Her focus was absolute, her mind locked on the path ahead. The sergeant's skepticism was shifting into something else, respect, edged with a grudging admiration. He knew the difference between bravado and skill, and she was proving the latter in spades. Her movements became a rhythm, a blend of agility and endurance honed through countless hours of unseen training. The balance beams, the crawling tunnels, the rope swings, they all fell beneath her steady march. Each obstacle was met with the same calm intensity, the same unyielding resolve. The sergeant's eyes followed her every motion, his previous amusement replaced by a growing unease. Here was a soldier who refused to be defined by rank or past judgment. The recruit's quiet confidence was infectious, spreading like a ripple through the ranks. Some of the younger soldiers found themselves matching her pace, inspired by the silent statement she made with every stride. The veterans, too, felt it, a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a challenge to the assumptions that had shaped their world. The sergeant, once the loudest voice in the field, now found himself listening to the unspoken language of determination. As she neared the final stretch before the toughest obstacles, her breathing remained steady, her expression composed. The sergeant's skepticism had morphed into a reluctant respect. He could no longer dismiss her as just a newcomer, a low-ranked recruit unworthy of attention. She was proving herself with every flawless movement, every obstacle conquered. The tension in the air was palpable as she approached the cargo net climb, a towering challenge that had broken many before her. She grasped the ropes with steady hands, her fingers finding purchase without hesitation. Upward she climbed, her body moving with a fluid efficiency that spoke of quiet preparation and inner strength. The sergeant's eyes narrowed, tracking her ascent with an intensity that bordered on admiration. She reached the top and glanced briefly over the edge before dropping down lightly onto the ground. The sergeant exhaled slowly, a sound barely audible over the murmurs of the crowd. His earlier laughter was replaced by a silent acknowledgement of her skill. He took a step forward, his posture shifting as if shedding the weight of preconceived notions. The soldiers around the course began to see her in a new light. No longer just the quiet recruit with an underestimated rank, she was becoming a symbol of steadfast resolve and understated power. Her steady progress was rewriting the narrative of the competition, challenging the unspoken rules that had governed their interactions for so long. The sergeant's face, usually hardened and unyielding, softened just enough to reveal a flicker of respect. He had witnessed her transformation from a figure of doubt to one of undeniable capability. The recruit's calm composure was not weakness but a wellspring of strength, a quiet defiance that spoke louder than any shouted boast. As she moved past the halfway point of the course, the sergeant found himself silently rooting for her success. He had seen many soldiers come and go, but few had the combination of skill and quiet determination that she displayed. The obstacle course was no longer just a test of physical endurance, it had become a battlefield of wills, and she was winning with every confident step. The recruit's focus remained unshaken, her eyes fixed on the path ahead. The sergeant's dismissive laughter was a distant memory now, replaced by a growing awareness that this quiet soldier was rewriting the rules with nothing more than steady resolve and an unyielding spirit. Around them, the murmurs of surprise and admiration swelled, but she paid them no mind. Her battle was internal, fought with every muscle, every breath, every calculated move. The sergeant watched on, his respect deepening with each passing moment. The quiet recruit was no longer an outsider, she was a contender, a force to be reckoned with. And as the course stretched out before her, demanding more than just strength, the recruit moved forward with a calm certainty that began to reshape the very air around her. The sergeant's doubt had been met with an unspoken answer, one forged not in loud boasts or empty claims, but in the steady, unyielding march of quiet determination. The final stretch of the obstacle course loomed ahead, a gauntlet of the toughest challenges the soldiers had ever faced. The recruit's breathing remained steady despite the growing exhaustion that tugged at her muscles. Around her, the others were beginning to falter, their earlier bursts of energy giving way to fatigue and frustration. But she moved with a precision that seemed almost mechanical, every step, every grip, every leap calculated and executed with flawless technique. The crowd's murmurs shifted from surprise to stunned silence as she approached the towering wall climb, the last physical hurdle before the sprint to the finish. The wall was a monolith of wood and metal, slick with mud and sweat, demanding not just strength but timing and balance. The sergeant stood close by, his eyes narrowing in focus, the skepticism that had once colored his gaze now replaced by a quiet awe. She planted her hands firmly, pushing off the ground with a surge of power. Her movements were fluid, arms pulling, legs pushing, a rhythm honed through countless hours of practice. The wall yielded beneath her grip, the rough surface scraping at her palms, but she pressed on without hesitation. The sergeant's breath caught as she reached the top, swinging her leg over in a swift, graceful motion before dropping down lightly on the other side. The silence among the spectators was almost reverent, broken only by the faint sounds of her careful footfalls as she sprinted toward the next challenge, the monkey bars. The metal rungs stretched ahead, a test of upper body strength and endurance. Many had failed here before, their arms giving out mid-swing, bodies crashing to the muddy ground below. But she approached with the same calm determination that had carried her through the course so far. Her fingers closed around the first bar, her body swinging forward in a smooth arc. With steady momentum, she moved hand over hand, her muscles taut and controlled. The sergeant's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of disbelief crossing his usually stoic face. He had seen soldiers crumble here, but she was dismantling the obstacle with ease, her form impeccable. Midway through the bars, a brief slip threatened to disrupt her flow, but she caught herself with a quick adjustment, muscles flexing to regain balance. The crowd exhaled collectively, tension rippling through the air. She pressed onward, each swing a testament to her endurance and focus. The sergeant found himself unconsciously leaning forward, captivated by her relentless pace. Landing on the far side, she wasted no time transitioning to the final challenge, the sprint across the uneven terrain to the finish line. Her legs pumped with steady power, feet pounding the earth in a rhythm that echoed like a heartbeat against the quiet that had settled over the onlookers. The sergeant's earlier laughter was now a distant memory, replaced by a silent acknowledgement of the recruit's exceptional skill. Around the course, fellow soldiers watched in stunned silence, their assumptions shattered by the recruit's flawless performance. The unspoken hierarchy that had governed their interactions seemed to crumble with every confident stride she took. The sergeant's eyes tracked her progress intently, the respect in his gaze unmistakable. As she neared the finish line, the tension peaked. The seconds stretched, every heartbeat amplifying the moment. With a final burst of energy, she crossed the line ahead of all others, the record time etched into memory by the stunned witnesses. The sergeant stood motionless, his usual command presence replaced by awe. The recruit's quiet strength had dismantled not just the physical course but the deeply ingrained preconceptions of the group. The crowd remained silent for a beat longer, processing the unexpected outcome. Then, slowly, a ripple of astonishment spread through the ranks. The sergeant, once the loudest skeptic, was the first to break the silence. Without a word, he nodded, a gesture heavy with respect and acknowledgement. Around him, others followed, their faces a mixture of surprise and newfound admiration. The recruit stood catching her breath, the exhaustion evident but overshadowed by an undeniable glow of achievement. She had not just completed the course, she had conquered it with a flawless technique and endurance that defied expectations. The obstacles that had once seemed insurmountable had fallen beneath her steady determination. The sergeant's gaze lingered on her, his earlier mockery replaced by a profound recognition of her capability. His nod was more than a formality, it was a silent admission that true skill transcended rank and age, that quiet resolve could outshine loud bravado. Around them, the soldiers began to murmur among themselves, the atmosphere charged with a new understanding. The recruit's performance had shattered long-held beliefs, challenging the unspoken rules that had shaped their world. The course was no longer just a test of physical strength, it had become a crucible where true character was forged and revealed. The sergeant stepped forward, his usual stern expression softened by a rare smile. He extended a hand, an unspoken truce and a token of respect. The recruit accepted it with quiet grace, the gesture bridging the gap between doubt and recognition. As the sun climbed higher, casting warm light over the training ground, the competition faded into the background. What remained was the undeniable truth that had emerged from the dust and sweat: excellence knew no rank, and respect was earned through unwavering determination. The soldiers, once divided by assumptions and hierarchy, now stood united by a shared witness to something extraordinary. The recruit's record-breaking run had not only redefined the course but had begun to reshape the very fabric of their camaraderie. In the quiet aftermath, the sergeant's nod lingered in the air, a symbol of changed perspectives and the power of perseverance. The recruit's silent strength had spoken louder than any words, leaving an indelible mark on those who had watched her dismantle the course in record time. The dust was still settling on the obstacle course as the sergeant approached the recruit, his footsteps deliberate and measured. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the training ground, the harsh light illuminating the lines of sweat and grime that traced her face and uniform. Around them, the other soldiers lingered in a charged silence, their earlier skepticism replaced by a palpable shift in attitude. The recruit, who had entered the competition as an underestimated newcomer, now stood at the center of quiet reverence. The sergeant's eyes, once sharp with doubt, softened as he met hers. He extended a hand, not in condescension, but in genuine respect. "You earned that," he said simply, his voice low but steady. It was a statement heavy with meaning, a recognition that transcended the rigid boundaries of rank and tradition. The recruit accepted the handshake with a nod, her expression calm but imbued with the quiet pride of hard-won triumph. Around them, the soldiers exchanged glances, the atmosphere thick with unspoken acknowledgement. The barriers that had separated them, the assumptions tied to rank, the prejudices shaped by years of unchallenged hierarchy, were beginning to crumble. The recruit's flawless performance had not only shattered records but had pierced the veil of doubt and dismissal that had once defined her place among them. The sergeant's nod was a subtle yet powerful symbol. It spoke of a new understanding, one that valued capability and character over titles and patches. The team's applause rose slowly, tentative at first, then swelling into a chorus of genuine admiration. The sound echoed across the training ground, a collective salute to a soldier who had proven that strength was not a matter of rank but of resolve. In the midst of the clapping and murmurs, the recruit stood with a composed dignity. Her journey had been one of quiet determination, a steady refusal to be defined by others' expectations. Now, that same determination had earned her not only victory but respect, a currency far more valuable in the world they inhabited. The sergeant's voice cut through the applause, firm yet respectful. "You showed us all what it means to lead by example. Rank doesn't make the soldier makes the rank." His words resonated deeply, carrying the weight of experience and the humility to acknowledge when assumptions had been wrong. The soldiers, many hardened by years of service and bound by tradition, felt the truth in those words. The recruit's performance was a mirror reflecting their own preconceptions, challenging them to reconsider what it meant to be a capable soldier. The quiet strength she had displayed was a lesson in resilience, humility, and the power of perseverance. As the team gathered around, the sergeant's approval seemed to melt the last remnants of doubt. The recruit, once dismissed as an unproven newcomer, was now embraced as a peer, her place in the squad no longer questioned but earned. The hierarchy that had seemed so rigid was now fluid, shaped by merit and mutual respect rather than mere titles. The shift in the soldiers' attitudes was subtle but profound. Where once there had been whispered doubts and skeptical glances, now there was camaraderie and shared purpose. The recruit's journey had become a quiet revolution, a testament to the truth that true capability transcends rank or gender. The sergeant's gaze lingered on the recruit, a silent promise that her example would not be forgotten. It was a moment that spoke volumes without needing words, a passing of a torch, an acknowledgement that the path forward was one illuminated by merit and determination rather than prejudice. The training ground, once a place of rigid divisions, now felt charged with new possibility. The recruit's victory was more than a personal achievement, it was a catalyst for change, a reminder that humility and determination command respect in ways that rank alone never could. As the soldiers dispersed, the recruit remained for a moment, absorbing the weight of the day's events. The world around her had shifted, subtly but irrevocably. She had not only conquered the obstacle course but had also dismantled the barriers that had sought to limit her. The sergeant's final nod, given in quiet respect, echoed in her mind, a symbol of earned trust and the breaking down of old walls. In the crucible of the competition, she had forged her place, not through loud declarations but through the steadfast march of quiet strength. And as the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting a warm glow over the training ground, the recruit stepped forward with the knowledge that she had earned more than a record or applause. She had earned respect, a prize far greater, one that would carry her through the challenges yet to come.